So I'm Jeff Leslie. I'm the director of the Housing Initiative Transactional Clinic, which is a clinic that represents nonprofit clients doing real estate development for the production of new low-income housing. So I have a video on our website that gives a kind of structured overview of the clinic directed at students, and I posted it to YouTube so I can track the number of views. And I can say that I think I've cracked 5 views now, and I think 3 of those are mine. So please visit the website and watch that video if you're interested in learning more. So in the clinic, we're working with nonprofits to develop affordable housing. Our projects run the gamut from very large, complex projects to small, limited scope kinds of projects, single-family rehabs on the small end, up to large multifamily residential developments and mixed-use developments on the more complex end. So we are featuring transactional clinics, so I thought I would talk about today about one of our transactions. This is one that we've been working on very hard this year. We expect to close in July. We are in the midst of reviewing financing documents that will be introduced to City Council to get approval for the deal. Then we'll go into a due diligence period, finish up those contracts, and have a closing, again, hopefully in July. Our client is the Cabrini Green LAC Community Development Corporation. Like many of our clients, this is a community development corporation. It's a nonprofit that's organized to do community development and affordable housing work. We've been working with them for close to 15 years now. We helped them to incorporate back in the day. We drafted their bylaws. We counseled the group in forming how to form their board. We've helped them with different governance issues over time. And now, and for the last several years, they've been out now doing deals. They are a development arm of an elected public housing tenant association at Cabrini Green. Cabrini Green is a public housing development on the north side of the Old Town neighborhood. It's a rapidly gentrifying, now fully gentrified neighborhood up there in Old Town. And the public housing tenants had sued the Chicago Housing Authority years ago around the plans for the redevelopment of the Cabrini Green public housing. Through that lawsuit, the tenant association, our client, won the right to participate in the redevelopment at Cabrini Green. We then helped them form the LAC CDC, which is the development arm of this public housing tenant association. So here on the board, I've put up a schematic of our deal. This is what we're doing. This is, let's see, it's 190 units. It's 134 of those, so about 70% of those units are rental housing. And the rest are market rate townhomes. That would be commanding a pretty penny up there. Within the rental project, 63% of those units are for low-income people. Those could be people who are, you might think of more as working families or workforce housing, people who are teachers, cops, firefighters, and then a good percentage of that is public housing families who tend to be lower income. So we are doing this deal. It's a big deal. It's $58 million capital budget. It's the last of several phases of this transaction. And we've been doing it through a joint venture that we've helped our clients to negotiate and form with a for-profit real estate developer. So what we've done to construct these 190 units, what we're going to be closing on in July, is we formed a rental limited partnership that's going to develop and own the rental portion of the site. That limited partnership has a general partner which manages the partnership. That general partner is wholly owned by this joint venture that we formed on behalf of our client with the for-profit developer. Then we have a bunch of investors in there who are funding this venture in return for a particular set of tax benefits that you can get for affordable housing through something called the Federal Low-Income Housing Tax Credit. It's a federal subsidy program to develop affordable housing. Then on this side, we formed a for-sale LLC, which is going to be constructing the market rate townhomes. That has a managing member within the LLC, which is, again, wholly owned by our joint venture. And this will also have investors who are really there to make profits off the townhome sales. These entities together are hiring a general contractor who's going to be building out the site, and they're using a slew of funding sources, some private money, some from government subsidies. I wrote 10 plus funding sources because it depends on how you count. Some of the funds are bridging other funds that are coming in later. So we've got a bunch of funding sources that are going to be managed to come in and fund this development. Here we've got one contractor building both sets of rental and townhome units. The units, for policy reasons, are going to be very closely intertwined. We want the low-income rental units to be distributed throughout the site and not cordoned off to one corner or another. So it makes sense to have a general contractor, one builder who's building this thing, and we'll have a sort of a three-way contract so that this partnership can put in its funding sources, this partnership can put in its funding sources. We've done this differently in different phases. There was an earlier phase where we had just this partnership built everything, and then at the end of the day, it sold the completed units to this partnership, which used its affordable housing funding sources to fund that purchase price. All right, so why do I bring that up? What do students do in these transactions? Well, as you can see, there's lots of contracts going on. There's partnership agreements, there's limited liability company operating agreements, there's construction contracts with the general contractor. There's a deal structuring component to this. Like, this doesn't just spring forth from the earth. This sprang forth from the foreheads of the lawyers and the accountants and business clients who together were trying to figure out, we know the goal, we know some of the resources, how do we decide on what entities to form, what contracts to put in place to make all of this happen. And our clinic and our students are in there every step of the way representing the Low-Income Housing Tenant Association to make sure that their interests in the development are respected and promoted. So we have been reviewing, drafting contracts, we've been negotiating. Right now, a student team, here we are at the end of the quarter, the student team is working hard to complete a set of leasing documents that will be used in development for the low-income portion of the site. That's been a negotiation primarily with our co-developer, a little bit with the housing authority. In terms of area of law, you can see there's land use implicated. We're conveying property, we're building on property. There's a set of zoning overlay to this that I don't have time to go into. We're dealing with partnership law, corporations law. We are addressing business risk and allocating it amongst different parties pursuant to contract. And we're doing this all in the shadow of tax law, which drives much of this structure, and then regulation, which drives much of this funding source availability, and in turn drives this structure. So why would you want to take this clinic? I would say it's useful transactional training for you because the kinds of transactions that we're working on are similar to other kinds of complex commercial transactions that you'll see after you graduate and go out and practice. It's similar to structured finance transactions, has some similarities to M&A. All of these complex deals follow a structure where you have business negotiation culminating in a term sheet, drafting of contracts, a due diligence period, and then a closing. That's exactly what our transactions do. It's also a good clinic to join if you care about addressing the social problems that our clinic is set up to address. So this clinic is an example of transactional lawyering in the public interest. We're grappling with issues of homelessness, trying to develop units for low-income people, and we're grappling with problems of gentrification and displacement. So we are constructing mixed-income developments that will have a place for a very long time, according to the ground leases, maybe 200 years, where these units will be dedicated to low-income people who can then stay in Old Town and enjoy the benefits of that very robust community. So I will stop there. Like I say, there's more in the video on the website. I'm happy to answer any questions at the end of the presentation. And so now,